Ocho sampo pa gyu trashi pa tuche tempe trinle yar ngoda belge drolor zampe ze parche pande lame shabla solwade Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timonisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Oma Guru Vajradhara Suma Timonisha Sanekar Uta Vardanya Shri Bad Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om A Guru Vajradhar Sumati Munishas Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lo Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke tukdan dageyi Töyerme çıktı çingelo Makyuke kudan dagelo Makyuke sundan dagena Dageyi Töyerme çıktı çingelo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Svoha Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dage Jinso Gibe Sonamki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyap Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamki Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupar Sho Sangye Chodan Tsoge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamki Drola Pinchira Sangye Druparsho. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma e nel Sangha prendo rifugio fino all'illuminazione. Con la pratica della generosità e delle altre perfezioni possa io ottenere uno stato di Buddha per il beneficio di tutti gli esseri senzienti. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo Laye Kedan Ludan Nuchinke Drubundanda Mike Namda Droba Kunge Dhanamache Tsampa Tamche Keto Dagi Chöten Tong. Si dice
It is said
che uno degli aspetti
that one of
fondamentali
the
della
fundamental
nostra pratica
aspects in our spiritual practice
è che il samaya,
is that the samaya is pure.
e ho chiesto, quando è stato ieri, l'altro
And
ieri,
I asked maybe yesterday or the day
il
before
significato di cercare una
of the
traduzione
meaning of
migliore
finding
della
a
parola
different
samaya, la realtà che noi abbiamo trovato.
meaning for the word in Sanskrit, but we did not actually find it.
L'etimologia della
But
parola
the
samaya
etymology of the word is sam.
okay. Quindi nel sanscrito
So in Sanskrit, samaya comes from sam, that is together, and aya is going. So going together.
dice Caterina che ha studiato
Katerina studied Sanskrit. I did not study it.
però
But
questa parola samaya
this word,
è un termine
samaya,
anche molto importante.
is a term that is very important. And it brings us to an aspect that
È un dettaglio, ma
it's a
una delle
detail, but
difficoltà
one
che
of the
abbiamo
main
quando
difficulties we
andiamo a
have
studiare le cose del
when we go
buddismo, le
study
pratiche,
Buddhist
che
things,
certe
the
parole, per
practices,
quanto cerchiamo
that
di
some
tradurre,
words,
non
even
hanno
if we
traduzione.
try to translate them, they don't actually have
Non
a
hanno traduzione
translation
perché il
because the
concetto non esiste nella
concept doesn't
nostra
exist
cultura.
in our culture.
E la parola
And the
samaya
word samaya
è un termine
is a
che
term that
cambia contesto, cambia
changes
significato ed è
the context,
qualcosa
it
che
changes the
è
meaning, so
profondo
it's
anche.
very deep.
Perciò uno degli
So
aspetti più
one of the
importanti
most
nella nostra
important
pratica
aspects in our
è che dobbiamo
practice is that we
mantenere il
need to
samaya puro.
keep this pure samaya.
Spesso il
And
samaya puro
usually
viene
this pure
tradotto come
samaya is
mantenere i
translated
nostri
as
impegni.
keeping
La parola
the
samaya viene tradotta
commitments.
come impegni, quindi dici, hai
Samaya is
preso dei
translated
voti,
as
devi
commitment,
rispettare
so
quei
you took
voti.
those
Hai
votes,
dato la tua
commitments, so
parola,
you need
devi
to keep them.
rispettare
You
la tua
gave your
parola.
word, so you need to
Però il samaya
keep
va
it.
oltre
But
questo,
samaya
non è
goes
niente
beyond
solo.
this. It's not just this.
Immaginiamo un'amicizia,
Let's imagine a friendship,
una relazione con
a
qualcuno con
relationship
cui
with
abbiamo
someone
amicizia.
towards whom we have friendship.
Quando fra quelle due
When
persone
between those two people
c'è rispetto,
there is respect,
c'è intesa,
there is
c'è affetto,
understanding
c'è
and
amore,
affection, love,
poi qualunque cosa
then
più o meno si riesce a fare.
you can do anything starting from
Si
this.
va d'accordo, ogni
We
tanto magari non si va d'accordo su qualcosa, ma
sometimes
non
we
è una
agree
vera
on
ragione
things,
per
sometimes we
creare
don't agree on
conflitto.
things, but it's not a reason to create conflict.
Si può
We
provare di
can
fare delle cose
try
insieme di
making
lavoro, in
things
alcuni casi vanno bene, in altri casi
differently
no, ma
in
non
work.
toglie
Sometimes it goes
quell'unità.
well, it goes bad, but it does
La
not take
base
away.
principale
This
per
is the
poter fare
basis
qualunque cosa è quel
upon
luogo
which
che
we
c'è
can
di
do
affetto,
anything
di
else.
amore,
It's
di
that place
fiducia.
where we have this love, affection,
Quando
and
viene a
faith,
mancare,
trust. And when
quando la
this is
relazione
lacking, when the relationship
comincia a non esserci più
starts,
in qualche modo la
let's
fiducia,
say there's no more trust
comincia a
in there
mancare
anymore,
l'affetto,
then also
comincia a
affection
mancare l'amore.
and love
A
comes
quel
less.
punto
And at that point,
comincia a creare, è come
it
se
starts to create
diventa
some sort of,
sporca la
it's like
connessione,
the
la
connection
comunicazione si
becomes
va
a
a
bit
perdere, piano piano le cose non
muddy
funzionano
and
più,
things don't
anche
start not
dove è
working
semplice si fa
well.
complicato.
Things that maybe are easy become
Quindi quando in una
complicated.
relazione con
So when in
qualcuno
a
la relazione
relationship
fluisce
with
bene
someone, the
perché
relationship
la
flows well
sintonia è
because
buona,
the synchronicity, the
vuol dire
connection
che
is
c'è il
good,
samaya è
it means
pulito.
that the samaya is clean.
Quando fra due
When between
persone
two
a un
people,
certo
at a
punto
certain
non c'è
point,
più quella
there
fiducia, non c'è
isn't
più
anymore this
quell'affetto,
trust and
c'è una
affection,
parte che la
and there is
connessione non è
some part
proprio
where the
pulita,
connection
uno
is
non è
not
proprio in
so
sintonia con
clean,
l'altro, si dice che il
and
samaya è
it's said
sporco.
that this, when this
Per
happens,
esempio,
it's said that the samaya
magari in
is
un
not
certo
clean, is
momento abbiamo
dirty.
amicizia, fiducia
At a
con
certain point,
qualcuno,
maybe it
poi
happens that we
rimaniamo
have a
male di
good
qualcosa.
relationship with someone, and then we
E nel rimanere male
become
con
sad
l'altro
because
c'è
of
un giudizio
something that happened
negativo,
with
c'è un
that other
rancore,
person, and
quindi
maybe there is
quel
some kind of
piccolo nodo che si va a
frustration,
creare
and we
sporca il
can
samaya.
create some knots in this relationship, and this goes and
Magari c'è della
makes
gelosia,
the
magari
samaya dirty.
dell'invidia,
Maybe
magari
that we
della
have some
qualche
jealousy, some
emozione
envy,
negativa
there's
nei
some
confronti
negative
dell'altra
emotion
persona che va a
towards the other
sporcare
person
quella relazione.
that
Quindi
kind
viene
of
chiamato il termine si sporca il samaya. E qual è la tecnica utilizzata per pulire il samaya?
that dirties the samaya. And what is the technique in order to clean it? The technique is to stay well together, be in harmony
Anticamente quello
together.
che si faceva
Anciently,
era che
what
per pulire
what
il
was
samaya
done
fra
is in
maestro e
order to
discepolo si
clean the
faceva una
samaya
bella
between
festa.
guru and disciple, there used to be parties. So it's a moment where we can be together with one another, because when we are feeling well with one another, this feeling, this sensation helps to untie those knots and find once again a point of encounter with that other person. So formally it is said that we clean the samaya with the practice of Gana Chakra. The Gana Chakra, Tsokikorlo, is the circle of union. And Gana Chakra today is something that we do every day at the center. It's a practice of, it's very ceremonial, but 1500 years ago, something like this, Gana Chakra was a moment where gurus and disciples would reunite. They would be in circles and they would draw on the floor a huge lotus flower with the number of petals of the divinity of the mandala, and in each petal each disciple would go, and at the center there would be the guru, and they would start singing, dancing, eating, drinking. It was a moment. There were some aspects of going beyond conventions in order to break mental rigidity, but it would start from saying, if I want to untie these knots with this person, I need to have some pleasant moment with this person. For example, eating together. We're in Italy, right? So we eat. So, okay, we eat something good together. And maybe this can untie those knots. And from this, space may come, and it's an opportunity to clean this relationship. In Mongolia, for example, there was one of these important masters called Kakajitsuntampa. That was the master that brought Buddhism to Mongolia, and at that time the Khan, the leaders of the different communities, it's not, they were the Hans, it was like
the clan, see?
Leaders of different clans in Mongolia, and they were rivals, and they were not able to speak to each other. The only times they tried to speak, they would end up fighting, because one would start saying one thing, the other would say, no, but it was really a moment just to start a fight. Probably someone would end up in the next life. So Kakajitsuntampa was very respected by everybody, and at a certain point he saw that there was one common thing among them besides violence and power and arrogance. They liked tobacco, the smelling tobacco, sniffing tobacco. So what he said was, okay, let's do something. You both meet, you have to just stay silent, not say anything, and you just switch your sniffing tobacco. And they met. One took his, gave it, and took the other. Everyone was personalizing it, because it was not something you would buy, so it was quite different one from the other. So, and also using the sniffing tobacco of the other was a sensation of trust, because it means no venom is in there. So they would switch this tobacco and looking at each other not very kindly, and then trying it and saying, actually it's not quite bad. And the other would do the same. Also this one is not so bad. How did you do this? I did like this, like that. And from this, it opened up the possibility of peace in Mongolia, and it was reached. So bringing a common point amongst them in order to open up also towards everything else that was happening. And then this master became the king of Mongolia in time. And he was the nephew of Kublai Khan, but besides from this, he was able to unify Mongolia. He was one of the most important people in Mongolia, in the history of Mongolia. But I'm talking about this because when there is a rupture between two people, there is a tension. one of the things we can do is to allow ourselves to enjoy a beautiful moment together. That it does not have to end there, it just needs to be an opening of space in order to clean those knots. And so this is called the samaya that is dirty, as we said. And in our spiritual practice, one of the most important things that there is maintaining our samaya towards our spiritual guides, towards Dharma, towards Sangha, pure. And in other words, not cultivating anger, sensation of judgment, negative judgment, envy, or things like this. Not cultivating these negative emotions and sensations that naturally can come. Otherwise, we would all be enlightened. But it's normal that someone is projecting his or her jealousy or this or that. Jokingly, I say that Lama is so good just until he says and does what you want. The day that the Lama is not doing what you want him to do or say what you want him to say and does the opposite, also because I put you there, I put you on the pedestal and you betrayed me. Why you did this? How did this happen? There were some masters in the past that were playing with this and they were creating absurd things and tests for disciples, but we are not in those times right now. But all of this to say that naturally, in any kind of relationship we find ourselves in, normally we project our things and it's normal. It's more than normal that we can have some judgment, some uncertainty, some jealousy, some envy, some aversion, sensation of betrayal. Many things can come. It already happened to me, someone coming to me saying, Lama, you looked at me badly. No. Yes. Okay, so then you know it. Do you have something against me? No, it's not true. Don't worry, everything is okay. No, it's not true. Yes. So just a few times it happened that I really had something with someone, but it's a few times, and if it happens, you know it very quickly. But what happens is that during our path, it's normal, not because we're Westerners, but it's normal that some small knots can happen in the samaya. But this samaya needs to be clean, and the cleaner it is, the more stable it is, better is our path. The better is our path. So the purer is the samaya, the more we can receive blessings, which is the same as for any other kind of relationship. The more a relationship is based on trust, on love, on affection, the more it's possible that from this relationship beautiful things can happen. We can see it clearly when there is something that is not going very well. It's just a moment in order for it to create tension. I remember one time I always was very lucky because I always had a great relationship with my master, Lama Rinpoche. There was one time that there was something that was starting to grow inside of me that was not so good. And I was very grateful that that time he came to me and he really got really angry at me. And it was a context that it seemed that it was not fitting, this reaction to the situation. Many years passed now, but I had a friend, Giovanni, and we would see each other just a few times a year, and once a year we would go to cinema together. He had this idea of having the cinema with the perfect sound and this and that, and there was this cinema near Milan, and we usually would go there once a year. And one day I had to go to the movies with him. I organized everything. I was here, I needed to go to Milan. There were here many people, family of Lama Rinpoche, many Tibetans, and he told me, there is this girl, she also needs to go to Milan. And I said, okay. I went to her and said, okay, come with me to Milan, but just one thing, going towards Milan, I need to go to the movies. Do you want to come? I will pay it for you. It's a nice movie. And she said, I don't like the movies. And I said, okay. But is it a torture? Come, just come along. If you want the lift. No, I don't like the cinema. At a certain point, there was the room full of people, of Tibetans, and Lama Rinpoche in Tibetan, he looked at me and he said, ah, yes, go on, do like this. Continue hiding your dirt under the rug. That one day, because it's a Tibetan term saying, and you will see that one day I will do this and your head will explode, like something really, really tough, like a really tough way of saying it in Tibetan. And my first reaction was going on defense. First reaction is defense. Ah, what did I do? I did not do anything. What are you talking about? And here, my master, okay, breathing. I said, okay, let's breathe. I will not put myself on defense mode. And I said, what happened? And he said, why do you have to hide from me that you're going to the movies? And I said, no, I'm not hiding it. I simply did not tell it, but I was not hiding it. Also because Lama Rinpoche was one of the most open people, so it's not that I had any problems talking to him about these things. So, and he said, no need to bring this girl anymore. And I said, but look, I changed the time of the movies, so I actually was able to bring the girl to Milan and then go to the movies. But anyways, what happened is that I realized in the midst of all of this that Lama Rinpoche has this attitude where he was very open, very free. He was very joyous, he was happy, he allowed himself to enjoy life, but at the same time, he dedicated 24/7, he dedicated it to other people and to Dharma. He would answer the phone at whatever time of the day or night. He would receive people at whatever time of the day or night. Private life was an inexistent concept. Sometimes there was so many people that were coming, speaking to him, and I remember that when he would go to the restroom, he would still keep listening to the person, or he had this very peculiar characteristics that years later I read in an article that it explained exactly this, and he would maybe one person could go to speak to him and about something very important, and he would fall asleep. And it was, and of course, then he would start also snoring. So at that point, I would stop speaking, and he would wake up and say, "No, no, please continue." Okay, I go on talking, and it's very strange talking to someone that is snoring in front of you. But okay, I do it because every time I would stop, he would say, "No, please continue." So the point is, when you finished everything, speaking about everything, he would wake up and he would answer to every single point. And I was reading this article about this yogi doing some experiments in the 70s in the USA. And I read something about the sleeping, the yogic sleep. So it's basically you are sleeping, but you are awake in your sleep. So it's peculiar, but anyways, Lama Rinpoche, what he showed me is that he had this profound sensation of freedom, but at the same time he was 24/7 dedicated. And my mistake was to create a small place of sense of guilt of doing something that was pleasurable for me. So going to the movies, there's nothing wrong about that, but at a certain point, at a certain level, it was like as if I was hiding. It was kind of subtle. So I was not actually hiding, but at the same time, somewhere this was happening. Why? Because there was a small sensation of guilt, because he was always dedicating all his time to the people and Dharma. And it's not that he was sacrificing, and it's not something that was heavy for him. And I realized that in this pure relationship, there was this small dirt that created. And in that moment where he got tough with me, he put the finger in the point where it was hurting, and he said, "Stop it." And it was very important for me because it allowed, because when you have a small knot, slowly it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it becomes so difficult to clean it up. So when we're talking about samaya, it can happen that in our path we create some lack of faith towards Dharma, towards our spiritual practice, spiritual life, the Sangha, and we have some negative judgment and envy and jealousy. These things are normal, it can happen. And the more we are able to clean this, the more we're able to have a pure relationship based on trust and love, then everything else becomes easier in our path. So in this moment, in the practice, after the mandala offering, what we do is the practice of to ask, to request the blessings, and included in this, we clean the samaya before of this. So we do the Locho Sampo Lucio Sampo prayer, where we request the blessings to Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, and this traditionally is called the request of the blessings of the lineage. In any practice, traditional practice, Tarachitamani, Yamantaka, Vajrayogini, Kalachakra, Heruka, Vajrapani. So these are some names of the practices in Vajrayana Buddhism. All practices at the beginning have the request of blessings of the lineage, where we read the name or the complete verse, or just the name of each of the masters from which this practice came to us. In our case, self-healing, Lama Ganchen Rinpoche received it. The longer lineage from Buddha Shakyamuni, manifested through Buddha Vajradhara, that transmitted to King Indrabhuti, the Guhya Samaja practice that was brought on from generation to Lama Ganchen, and he put it in this practice for us. This is the extended lineage, the line of transmissions that we have from us until Buddha Shakyamuni, or from Buddha Shakyamuni until us, to be more precise. There are some techniques of meditation, some practices, that the way in which they were transmitted, they come from a direct experience, from a realized practice. For example, Tarachitamani practice comes from the direct experience of a vision of Tabuk Dorje Chan. So when we do the request of the blessing of the lineage, the first master is him, because this practice was born with him. So this is called the close lineage. And in self-healing, it's with Lama Ganchen Rinpoche. In Borobudur, Lama Ganchen Rinpoche received this practice, and it starts with him. So this is why we request the blessing of the lineage directly to Lama Ganchen Rinpoche. And slowly, from generation to generation, we would need to add the masters, so who received this practice from Lama Ganchen Rinpoche directly through time. For example, if someone receives from me or from Lama Caroline, there is the lineage, okay, Lama Ganchen, Lama Michel, and the disciple, or Lama Ganchen, Lama Caroline, and the disciple. And then slowly, we hope that this will become extremely long, this prayer of the lineage, in order to do it for many years to come. But we find ourselves in the kind of the beginning of this. So we're requesting the lineage of the blessing of the lineage. And at this moment, we visualize Guru Buddha in front of us in the aspect of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche or our root guru. If it's not Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, so the master from whom we received this practice, the lineage masters come, they absorb one into the other, and from his 3 chakras there come the ray of lights, white, red, and blue, that absorbs in our chakras of crown, throat, and heart, bringing us the blessings of body, speech, and mind. And when we do this mudra, and when we do this other mudra of Garuda, when we go like this, we are requesting the blessing. And when we go up with our hands, we're imagining from the chakra of Guru Buddha the light that comes and absorbs into our chakras. So from the throat, we ask the blessings, then we receive and they absorb, and the same thing from the heart. This moment is a moment in which we clean also the samaya. So we request the blessings to our gurus, and one of the objectives in this moment is to clean everything and anything that we feel that is impure. Even if in the preliminary practices we already started to do this, admitting openly our mistakes, etc. So already we have this, but here, if there is still some reminiscence of something, we request the blessings and we imagine that the relationship becomes perfectly clean. And if there is no dirt, the samaya, it becomes even stronger and stable, and we go nurture it. So what is the samaya in this case? It's trust. It's love. It's this sensation and emotion of connection, of trust, profound connection from heart to heart, from mind to mind. Okay?
Fatto questo,
Once we do this, we have the next part that is called the Guru Yoga. And the practice of Guru Yoga, if we take the Taracitamani practice after the request of blessings from lineage, we have the Guru Yoga. Similarly, in self-healing, when we do Om Guru Buddha Siddhi Hum, we are requesting the blessings of all the masters of the lineage, especially of Guru Buddha. And Guru Buddha is in the aspect of our Guru, inseparable from all Buddhas. This is why it's called Guru Buddha. One thing that I did not explain earlier, the mantra and the prayer.
Se prendete un attimino, guardate il testo.
If you look at the text of the mantra, page 36,
il tibetano è una lingua che permette
Tibetan is a language that allows some things that is not possible in Italian. Because, for example, almost all words are written in 2 syllables, and you can also say the word in 1 syllable. So, lo chok, lo mind, chok, excellent, excellent mind. Sangpo means virtuous, like my dog's name, Sangpo. Palgyur Tashipa. Pal means
Shri del sanscrito.
Shri in Sanskrit.
Eccellente, virtuoso.
Virtuous, victorious. Tashi of good auspicious. But in here we have the name of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche and the name of his previous life. Lama Ganchen was like a sort of a nickname. It's like the Lama of the center of Albagnano was called Lama of Albagnano, because Ganchen was the name of the village where his monastery was, the monastery of Ganchen. So this is why he was called like this. And in Tibet, the real names of the masters were known only by the most close disciple. Otherwise, they would be called with the names of their villages or monasteries. His name was Lobsang Tupten Trille Yarpel. So the first syllable is Lo. The third syllable is Sang, Lochog Sang, so Lo Sang, his name. In the second line we have Tup, Chen, so Tupten. So if we go over the Chen, we have Tupten. So Lo Sang Tupten, and right after this we have Trinle, Yar. Then first syllable of third line, Pel. So if you follow with the text, we can see Lo Sang Tupten, second line, Trinle Yar, and then the third, Pel. Lopsan Tupten Trinle Yar Pel, the name of Lama Ganchen. At the same time, we have in the first line, Sampo, and the end of the first line, Tashi. Sampo Tashi was the previous life of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche. So in this verse, there is written, it's not even hidden, it's in poetry, in Tibetan, where we write things in a way that is not so explicit. So for this, there are many texts that you read and explicitly there is written things, but implicitly there are written many more things, so it's very peculiar. So there's like hidden messages and meanings, and it's very peculiar Tibetan in this sense. But in this verse, what it says is the name of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, of his previous life. O glorious Master, to you I make a request of blessings. So it's the name of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche and his previous life. And in general, this is the classic formula of the verses of request of blessings to the Master, is their name written in a poetic and a bit hidden way. So this is what happens traditionally. And this verse in particular was written by one of the masters of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, and also my master, one of the most incredible people I met, and he wrote this verse as a homage to Lama Ganchen Rinpoche. And the next mantra, Oma Guru Vajradhara Sumati Muni Shasanekaru. It means basically the same thing as the previous verse. Om means many things, but in general, mantras usually have Om A and Hum at the end. So here we have Om A, and at the end of the verse we have Hum, which means body, speech, and mind. Om A, Guru, means Guru. Vajradhara means Buddha Vajradhara that we explained this morning, is the way in which Buddha manifests when he teaches Tantra. It's called the body of enjoyment of Buddha, is the essence at a subtle level of the Buddha, this union of emptiness and wisdom. It means, oh, you Guru that are inseparable from Buddha Vajradhara, that you're inseparable from him. This is why we say Guru Buddha. So Guru Vajradhara, Sumati Muni, is Lopsan Tupten. Sumati Mune, Shasane Karma, Uta Vardanye, is Trinle Yarpel. So Sumati Muni Shasane Karma, Uta Vardanye, is the name of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche in Sanskrit. Lopsan Tupten Trinle Yarpel. So we are saying, O Guru Buddha, Lobsam Tupten Trinle Yarpel. Shibhadra means excellent, pure. It's a form of respect. Varsamanya Sarva Siddhi Hum, grant me all realizations. Varsamanya, to be precise, I don't know what it means, but Sarva Siddhi means realizations, and Sarva is all. So, O Guru Buddha, Lobsen Tupten Trinle Yarpen, I request your blessings to grant me all realizations. So when we request realizations, we are not asking him to do it for us. We are requesting the blessings in order to obtain realizations. And we mean by realization developing love, stability, joy, gratitude, etc. So the mantra is where we ask directly the blessings to Lama Ganchen Rinpoche and the masters of the lineage. The next mantra, Om Guru Buddha Siddhi Hum, is the abbreviated version of the previous mantra. Instead of saying all the name of the Guru, I just say Om Guru. So instead of saying all of that, we just say Oma Guru Buddha instead of Vajradhara Siddhi Hum. So actually it's the same thing. It's the reduced version. So what I'm saying is, O Guru, inseparable from all Buddhas, grant us the blessings in order to receive, to obtain the realizations. It means mundane, and the mundane realizations end up with death. And among these we have clairvoyance, or different abilities, energetical abilities of healing. There is one's own prosperity, health, clarity of mind. There are many things that are called mundane realizations. And the supramundane realizations are those that move forward from life to life, and they are the most important ones. And it's something that goes to a very subtle level that we talked about this morning. So the realization of developing patience, balance, stability, joy, love, gratitude, wisdom in a deeper level. More technical level is realizing relative bodhicitta, meaning altruism, the correct view of reality, called the absolute bodhicitta. These are the realizations we are looking for. So while we're doing Om Guru Buddha Siddhi Hum, we put together our hands in front of all our 5 chakras, and we imagine from the chakras of Guru Buddha rays of light and nectar touching and absorbing in our own chakras. And while they're coming, it's like as if we were slowly vibrating at the same frequency. It's like saying, I am in the presence of your wisdom, of your love, of your patience, of your stability, etc., etc. And this creates the conditions in order for me to develop also this quality. Because let's remember that when we're talking about blessing is a condition that helps us to transform ourselves positively. And one could, at this point, one could arrive and just until here in the practice and end it here. One could arrive at this point of the practice and accumulate Om Guru Buddha Siddhi Hum, doing the accumulation of Om Guru Vajradhara, visualizing the light and nectar coming. You end this. Guru Buddha in front of us comes towards us and enters in our crown chakra, absorbs into our heart, and we do our conclusion practices. We can do also this, and it's called the Guru Yoga practice, and it exists also the retreat of this practice, and one can accumulate 100,000 mantras of the Guru, and it's very beautiful. So at this point, we usually do just 1 time or 5 times per chakra, but one can do it even longer. One could stay there with the mala or without and just do accumulation. And while you're doing the mantra, there is this flow of this rain of nectar and light that brings the blessings and creates these conditions that naturally purify negativities and generating interior sensation of peace. And this is a part of the practice that is very important, that is the practice of Guru Yoga, which is described by many masters as the essence of the path. the thing without which nothing else can be sustained. So if the Guru Yoga practice is done correctly, then everything else goes and follows. And this also has to do with something we were talking about earlier about having a pure samaya. So real Guru Yoga, the deeper Guru Yoga is manifested in the pure samaya, in this deep relationship. This is the real Guru Yoga. One can do 1,000 mantras, but if inside we have hatred or frustration, this doesn't quite work well. So with this, we have the part of requesting the blessing together with the Guru Yoga practice.
Quando noi finiamo
When we finish Oma Guru Buddha Siddhihum, one of the visualizations we can add that is very nice, that is not explicitly written here, but we can do it, is that an emanation of Guru Buddha comes, enters in our crown, and sits at our heart. And every time we do this visualization, what happens is the following. We have the beginning, we have visualized our body as a body of light with a central channel and 2 lateral channels. Each chakra is composed by subtle channels of energy that encounter. And at the heart there are 8 channels, which are the 8 principal channels in the 4 cardinal positions and in the intermediate as well. And these are the 8 petals of the heart chakra. Guru Buddha enters our center channel, and usually we visualize it as small as our thumb, and he sits at this petal flower, lotus flower at our heart, and within it, above the lotus flower and the cushions of sun and moon, there is a point of light which represents our body and mind at a very subtle level. And Guru Buddha, when he sits at that point, he connects with his own light and manifestation of subtle body and mind. And it's like if they were uniting once he sits at our heart. And it's said that the body and mind of Guru Buddha is the artist, and it's said that our own point of light is like being molded by the artist sitting at our heart. So it interacts with us and we transform like Guru Buddha. We become inseparable from Guru Buddha. Inseparable in the sense that we visualize ourselves as being of the same nature, as becoming the same thing. On a technical level, is like the presence of Guru Buddha transforms our own body and mind. And when we do this practice in general, there are different moments, we allow ourselves to imagine. It's like imagining, allowing myself to experience what it is like to be like Guru Buddha, experiencing this infinite space, unconditioned love, awareness, presence. I allow myself to be Guru Buddha from the inside to the outside. And this is one of the parts, and this is called absolute Guru Yoga. One of the practice that is not described or written in many sadhanas is not something that is written. Someone maybe practice it by oral transmission. They are not written. Many parts of the practice are not put in writing, not because someone forgot about it, but because you cannot practice it without having correct instructions. So it is left in order to be told and transmitted orally, because one of the aspects of this is the absolute Guru Yoga. But we will not enter into details right now, but in a few words, it's allowing ourselves to be of the same nature of Guru Buddha. So once we end this part of Guru Yoga, when we end the request of blessings and we end what are called the preliminary practices, we have this bridge, this connection between the preliminary practices and the generation stage. So to start, let's try to do the purification of the 5 elements that has the function, the principal function of generating this inner state of bliss. There are different levels and ways of explaining and practicing. We will see just one of this. In general, in the majority of sadhanas, like Yamantaka, Vajrayogini, Tarachitamani, etc., in the same order as self-healing, actually, once we do the part of Guru Yoga, then there is the transformation of the inner offering. And it is described using a symbology that is really, really difficult for majority of us to understand what it is. The symbol you can see, but what it is, it's very difficult to connect to, not just for us, but also for monks in monasteries. They are things that through time, once maybe it was easier to understand, but through time we kind of lost this. So one of the beautiful things of self-healing is that Lama Rinpoche, from the purification of the 5 elements until the secret initiation, the wisdom initiation, etc., that we will see further on, he went beyond the symbol and he gave us the meaning, which is extremely rare. And to me, it's like for me, it was through the self-healing practice that I was able to understand a lot, also other practices. Okay, let's explain it in this way. This object here, that it's one of the implements that we use in different practice in Tantra, and it's called the inner offering. And it's composed by a half circle at the basis. Above this we have a triangle, and above this we have 3 heads. And when one visualizes, its half circle is the element, the wind element. Then above it we have the fire element, upon which we have the 3 heads, one just cut, one a bit rotten, and one completely like in a skull. So it's white, red, and blue. It's a bit dark as a symbology, but these 3 heads have a symbology that represents the correct view of reality in 3 manifestations of the correct view of reality. But the most fundamental thing is that there is this fire triangle upon which we have this half a head, like a kapala, this part of the head. Like a skull cup. And within this we visualize what are called the 5 meats and 5 nectars. So one visualizes this half circle of wind, triangle of fire. Upon this we have this skull cup, cut skull cup. Within it we have elephant meat, human meat, horse meat, dog meat, and buff. And then we have the 5 nectars, and we have blood, sperm, urine, and then the fire burns and everything boils, and it becomes like a soup. Above this we have 3 symbols, Oma Hum, that represent body, speech, and mind of the Buddha, ray of light go out from it and they absorb, then the hum absorbs in this soup, eliminating every form of impurity, of smell, of form. The A dissolves, transforming into nectar, this soup into something of like gray color, and then the multiplies and it becomes a nectar that generates bliss. So, let's see, what does this has to do with the purification of the 5 elements? What is being done in these practices is, what is the form when we sit? It's half a circle. So the wind element is at the secret chakra. So all the winds enter the central channel. The fire at the navel is called tumo, fire, that has a connection with Kundalini. Anyways, this inner fire in the triangular form, so the wind blows, and the absorption of the winds in the central channel allow the fire to go up, to move upwards. This skull cup, within which we have these 5 meats and nectars, the 5 meats and 5 nectars is a way to represent the 5 aggregates and the 5 elements. What are we made of? Body and mind, that are the 5 aggregates of the body, of sensations, discernment, compositional factors, and conscious. These are represented by the 5 meats. Don't ask me why for this symbology, but it's many, many, many years that it was like this. And then we have the 5 nectars that represent the 5 elements. We are composed by body, mind, and elements. When this burns and it becomes this kind of soup that generates bliss, why inside the skull cup? Because the inner substance that generates bliss, called bodhicitta, is found at the crown chakra. So what happens is, internally, the wind blows, the fire grows, the heat goes upwards towards our crown chakra, where it melts, this white bodhicitta becomes this kind of nectar that goes down and generates this profound sensation of bliss that fills our body and mind. And this process, through the heat, purifies the body and the mind. So the fire burns and boils these substances, represents transforming our body and mind, inner transformation. So this is why it's called the inner offering. This is an external symbology, but it represents something that is happening inside of us. I remember one time I was here and I was doing an explanation on Yamantaka practice, and when there was this explanation in Yamantaka practice, I explained the correlation with the inner reality, as in the practice of self-healing. And that day, after the teachings, I went home at lunch with Lama Rinpoche, and there was also the Shargaden Abbot, Geshe Lobsang Pende, and it was just us 3 at lunch, and Lama Ganchen asked me, what did you teach today? And I said, Rinpoche, I explained the inner offering. What did you say? And I started to explain what I said, how. Of course, in an abbreviated way, but I explained. And when I finished, the abbot of Shargaden, this old monk, he said, wow, you are very lucky. We just received the commentary of Yamantaka in the monastery, and nobody explained to us these things. These are not things that are explained usually. Because this is something that maybe someone understands after so much time. Because there are these different types of symbologies that are very powerful, but through time we lost the connection to these symbols, and we start visualizing all externally, and we forget that they represent something internal. Even if it's called inner offering, sometimes we don't make this connection. But Lama Ganchen Rinpoche gave us this key. He took out the symbology, the external symbology that for us is difficult to understand, and he went straight to the meaning. So this is just to show just one part that is so special of this practice, and this also at the end of the practice, when we talk about the initiations, also there is something is important that we will explain. But here we have this inner process of absorbing the winds in the central channel that generates this heat connected to Kundalini that goes upwards, that goes towards our bodhicitta, that melts and fills our body, and it's connected in our mundane experience to the orgasm. And I remember one time I was doing a retreat, and at a certain point, one of people during this retreat told me during this retreat, Lama, I need to tell you something. And she was not feeling very well. She was feeling a bit, and she said, I was doing my mantra there, and at a certain point I started to feel this huge heat inside of me, and this heat started to go up, 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 and it was so pleasurable. I was not able to even move, and then at a certain point the heat started to going upwards, and I started to feel something like it was orgasms that were never stopping, and I was in this state and this state was during a lot, and I was not even able to move, and this is what it's called bliss. And the closest thing that exists on a mundane level is the experience of sexual pleasure, orgasm, but it's something that it's not connected to the sexual union. It goes beyond this, and these techniques that were transmitted, it are based on an internal energy, not on an external force. What we do here, it's called the generation stage, because one of the meanings of this, it's fake it till you make it. So someone fakes it until you're able to do it. So one starts to imagine this, imagining, until a certain point something moves. Also because what we also already said previously is, if you remember, the body is like the horse, and the rider is like the mind. So where the mind goes, the body follows. But if the body cannot go somewhere, the mind cannot go. If I'm thinking of bringing up my hand, we have inner processes that makes us
si muovono per far alzare la mano.
And actually, when this is happening, the subtle winds inside our body, the prana inside our body, moves in order for us to bring our arm up. But it's not just this, there's also something more. But okay, beyond this, when I'm visualizing with my imagination, something is moving inside of me. So also one time we were in Brazil, and we were doing the Tara Chitamani retreat in Campos do Jordão, and it was quite cold actually. There was no heating system, and at a certain point I was starting to hear people complaining, it's cold, Lama, it's cold, Lama. And I started to say, okay, so either you go away, or you take a blanket, or you stop complaining. Okay, we understood that it's cold, but then I was thinking, okay, let's try this exercise. That it's the following: we sit down, we inhale, we contract the lower muscles, we keep the air under the navel, concentrating all the energy under the navel, imagining the winds entering, and we imagine a small fire growing. And we started to do this. There was this girl, she was 9 years old, very young, and she was there, and at a certain point she was very concentrated, and she concentrated so much that the next day she was her butt was hurting because she was concentrating so much and keeping all tense. And at a certain point she started to sweat a lot and said, I feel very hot. So the point is that usually this works, but we need to try this. Of course, if I stay there just saying Eyara Lambam with the mind going somewhere else, it doesn't work. But the point is, I direct my energy, I imagine all the prana, the subtle winds going to the secret chakra from the lower part to the upper part, from the top to the bottom. I concentrate the energy under the navel. I imagine the fire starting to grow. The fire grows slowly, slowly. So the wind blows, the fire grows inside the central channel. It grows, 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 and it starts to heat the upper part of the body, that is, represent the earth, heating up. And then when this heat comes to the throat, it's like a small lake that is at our throat, and it's like the heat boils this water. Part of it evaporates, goes to the crown, it condensates, and then this white bodhicitta melts, and it generates this bodhicitta feeling. And we imagine this rain of white bodhicitta going down, and it enters in each and every one of our chakras and in each and every one of our channels. So enters the 32 channels at the crown, enters the 16 channels of the throat, the 8 channels of the heart, the 64 channels of the navel, and the 32 channels of the secret chakra. And this nectar of bliss expands to all the body, and the more it expands, the more it generates this inner sensation of bliss. The term that is used in English is overwhelming, and in Italian it's an experience that you cannot but experience bliss. It's a pleasure that doesn't leave space to anything else. This is what is represented in this purification of the elements. And this sensation of bliss also cleans all the subtle channels, energy channels. This inner state of bliss cleans also the nervous system, our subtle channels, our energies. So this is also why we say Shuddha Shuddha Soha, because it's a cleaning. So this bliss goes and cleans the channels in order for our energies to flow correctly. And this is a deeper explanation of the purification of the elements. Then we use the syllables that represent the essence of the energy of each of the elements, because let's remember that a syllable represents a sound. A sound is movement, movement is vibration, vibration is energy. So E is the essence of space, Yam the essence of wind, Ram the essence of fire, Lam the essence of earth, Bam the essence of water. And then we have the different colors. Also the colors, each color is a different frequency of light. And they have a correlation to a certain kind of energy. The space is blue, the wind is green, the fire is red, the earth is yellow, the water is white. Some could ask, but in the practice of the self-healing of the environment, the elements are in a different position. Yes, because they have different functions. Maybe we will speak about this in another moment. And here, it's important for us at the first moment when we do this mudra, we imagine that we take out this dirt from our elements on a more gross level. But if we have a bit more time and we sit and we imagine this continuous flux of wind blowing, the fire burning, the earth getting heating up and the water boiling, the bodhicitta going down. And before this, we have the purification of the space element that creates a basis in order to purify the other elements. And there is also a peculiar thing of the self-healing practice that majority of the teachings transmitted in Tibet, for sure within the Galupa tradition, I don't know in the other traditions, so I will not say, but the space element was, in the majority of cases, taken out or kept secret. It's like a taboo. We don't have it. Also, like, for example, Guya Samaja practice, at the beginning of this practice, there are cited all the elements, also the space, but after that, it's like it disappears. So, usually, it is said, it is talked about 4 elements, and the mothers that are manifestation of the elements at a pure level, we talk about 4 mothers, not 5. And Lama Ganchen Rinpoche said, no, here there's something wrong. He did not say something wrong, but he said the elements are 5, there is the space, and we have the 5 great mothers. There's a whole explanation, but my theory that I also confronted with a teacher, a master in Tibet, on the reason why to hide this element of space. It's quite long in order to talk about it now, but in a few words, we have 2 different spaces. One is the element space, that is the space between elements. For example, if we did not have space between us, we would be one thing. If we did not have space between atoms, we would be in a black hole. I don't know. The element space is what allows movement, what allows interaction between other elements. And then another thing exists that is not the element space, but the space, generalized space, that is permanent. It's the absence of obstructive contact, and this, the absence of obstructive contact, so it's the non-affirmative negation of obstructive contact, so absence of obstruction. It's such an important concept when we study about emptiness and correct view of reality. So in order to take out the confusion between the element space and generalized space, permanent, they simply decided to not talk about space. But reality, when we talk about reality, the element space, it exists, and so it needs to be taken into consideration. So this is one of the specific teachings of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche that are so precious that I did not see in other teachings, to have this clarity of the presence of the space element. To many, maybe does not mean anything, but it's quite important. And this also shows the bravery of Lama Ganchen Rinpoche, because when he saw something that he was convinced about, he did not really care what other people thought. And when I asked to my master in Tibet, but the element space, mother space, and I explained everything, and he said, following the logic, you are completely right. What we miss is the reference in texts. In part, it's true, because if we look at actually it's not so true, because if we look at Guya Samaja Tantra, at the beginning it's there, but then it gets kind of lost. But anyways, all of this to say is that the purification of space, of the element space, is what allows other elements to interact. So when we purify the space, we visualize at the crown, but actually is present in all the body. It's like creating the conditions for other elements to interact correctly.
Una delle cose che vi
One of the things that I invite you to try is to do the practice until the Guru Yoga, and then we can arrive to the purification of the elements, reciting it a few times, and you just stay there together with the breathing. When we inhale, we imagine that in this moment the winds absorb at the secret chakra. We keep the air so the fire can grow. And when we exhale, we can see how the fire goes upwards until it reaches the skull. And then the bliss nectar goes in all our body, and within this flux of breathing, this process continues. And we try to concentrate on each of these passages, this like allowing us like 30 minutes or something like this to stay there and be present, and allowing ourselves to get into contact with this part. And one of the functions of this is to generate the state of bliss. And then with this bliss, we add the emptiness of intrinsic existence that we will not explain right now. And it's wonderful that each part of the practice actually is a practice in itself. And if you just want to do the purification of the 5 elements, you can do it. If you want to sit down and do just this part, you can do it. Of course, if you do the preliminary practices and the Guru Yoga as well, of course, is better. But because, of course, one part brings to the other kind of naturally. But I invite you to take each of these parts and do it calmly, sitting down, visualizing each element, allowing this inner movement, at least to visualize it, to imagine it. And the more we can imagine it with a concentrated mind, directed without distractions, etc., it creates this inner movement with all effects. But let's remind ourselves that we are in the generation stage, that is the part of the fake it until you make it, which the make it is the part of stage of the completion stage. So now we are imagining in order to slowly realize this. I'm saying this in order for you not to just try 3 times the practice and say, I did not feel anything. Okay, we need more time. We need to go in more depth, slowly. And it's not to... Of course, we need time to do it, and it's normal. And it's something that if each part of the practice is done well, then one leads naturally to the other. In these days, I want to explain also on a deeper level the parts of the practice, so that you can also can have an understanding of the practice that goes beyond the surface, so that you can understand what needs to happen inside. Because there is an external part that is easy. Okay, how you do the mudras, what is the mantra to do, the meaning of the mantra, every part of the word. But this, it's all written. Also, this huge book in English, there are all the explanations, every detailed explanation of all mantras, of all mudras. Each part is explained so detailed. At least I remember I explained this. I did not read the book, but as I said some days ago, the practice is divided into 3 parts: what to recite, what to visualize, and which state of consciousness to develop, which is what is the physiological and psychological intention and realizations we need to reach. When we do this part of the practice, Sangye-chodang, we are generating love towards others. When we're doing the part of the practice of Guru Yoga, we are cultivating the pure samaya of trust with the Guru, etc., etc. So it's important for us to understand what needs to happen inside of us that goes beyond the form of the practice. Then if someone follows well the method, then the result also comes, even if we don't know what we need to develop inside. But if we are aware of the process, it's even easier. Okay? So let's dedicate now.
Jetsun lame kutse rapten chin namkaratin le chokchur gepadang losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel takto ne gyur chi kewa kunto yanda lama dang dralme cheki pela longche ching sada lamge yente rabzone Dorje change kopa nyur tobo sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delek shing ninsen takto delek pe kuncho sumki chingilo kuncho sumki ngodrubo tsol kuncho sumki trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Un solo ricordo.
Just a reminder, traditionally, when we do an explanation of a spiritual practice like we're doing these days, that is, use the term commentary, who receives should meditate at least 3 times on what is being taught. So today we explained the part of receiving the blessings and the purification of the elements. Ideally, before going to bed, you can do this part of the practice, and tomorrow, before coming to the next teachings, it would be ideal to repeat this practice 2 other times. So ideally, going from one teaching to the other, one should familiarize with what was taught at least 3 times before a new explanation. In partially we're doing it together because we're doing the practice together 2 times per day. For example, now that we already explained this part, maybe before going to bed, one just does this part of the practice, what we explained, and try to give some emphasis and remembering this part of the practice. And this is one of the ways, not just to give more importance to the practice, but also to assimilate better what was transmitted. So, good practice, enjoy your meal, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.